Will the New York Jets trade safety Marcus Maye by the November 2nd trade deadline? That is the story here on a Friday. Welcome in. My name is Jake Asman. This is the Jake Asman Show, as we are just a couple days away from the Jets returning from the bye week and going to Foxborough to take on the New England Patriots. We'll talk more about that game towards the end of this video, but we're going to talk about Marcus Maye. Before we get to any of that, I ask that if you're new to the channel, you help me out by clicking on the right side of your screen, smashing that subscribe button. It helps the channel continue to grow. Right now, I am at 7,483 subscribers. I'm trying to make a push to get to 8,000, possibly by the end of this month, but more likely beginning of November. So thanks to everyone who watches each and every day. I certainly appreciate all of you. The big story is Marcus Maye right now for the Jets. He spoke to the media for the first time yesterday since he was injured, and since the news came out that during the offseason, Marcus Maye was arrested for a DUI in Broward County, Florida. And look, the reality is Marcus Maye and the Jets, it's a very complicated relationship. Marcus Maye wants a new contract. The Jets, to this point, have been unwilling to pay Marcus Maye. My standpoint from the beginning of all this is I'm fine with bringing Maye back and signing him long term because I think it sends the right message to the locker room that if you play well, if you're drafted by the team, you could be part of the team long term. But there's a lot of factors at play here. One, Marcus Maye was not drafted by Joe Douglas. That's important to note. Two, Marcus Maye does not play a premium position. He really does. Safety, as we know, Jet fans, is not a difference-making position. It does not impact the game quite like, obviously, quarterback or left tackle, or if we stay on defense, a shutdown corner or a defensive end. So I like Marcus Maye. He's a good player, but he's not a great player. And it seems like the Jets, they obviously don't agree on what Maye's value is. So right now he's on the franchise tag. Now, what they could easily do is not trade him by the deadline, slap the franchise tag on him again, and then trade him in the offseason when there might be more teams involved. If they're looking to trade him after week 8 by November 2nd, I just question what you could get for a guy that's been injury prone, right? He's coming off the ankle injury that's caused him to miss the last 3 games this season. And I just wonder if there's going to be a team that's really going to give you enough where you'd want to move Marcus Maye. If you can only get like a 4th or a 5th or a 6th round pick, I don't think I'm moving him because he's still a good player, and I think he helps this defense. And I think it's important for the Jets as they try and establish a new culture to try and win as many games as possible this year, right? This is not last year where the year's over and you're tanking, and you're trying to get the top pick. This year's about developing this team, laying a foundation, and you do that when you win games more so than when you just lose. And Marcus Maye is still a good player, and he can help you win games. So I don't want to just give Marcus Maye away. With that being said, if a team like Kansas City, who needs help on defense, or another team that thinks Marcus Maye could be a difference maker for them, is willing to give you at least, I would say, a 3rd round pick, I would do it. It's important to note that the Jets have 7 picks in the first 4 rounds of the draft. If they could even get 8 picks in the first 4 rounds, I'd listen. Maybe a conditional 4 that could turn into a 3rd round pick, depending on how Marcus Maye plays. I think what a lot of Jet fans need to understand, though, with this is that Marcus Maye still making a lot of money for his safety, right? I mean, you trade him by the deadline, it's about $6 million an NFL team has to pick up. This time of the year, not a whole lot of NFL teams have that much cap space flexibility. So, the Jets would have to maybe be creative, or the team that acquires Maye would have to be creative. Now, what's interesting to note here is Marcus Maye, speaking for the first time, said that he doesn't want to be traded. Says, I know I want to be here. To me, Jet fans, that doesn't mean that that's actually true. Marcus Maye's agent came out shortly after he got hurt, and he tweeted, well, my client will be healthy just in time for the trade deadline. So then Marcus Maye's asked about that and says he can't speak for what his agent tweets. Let me translate. That's BS. The agent works for you, Marcus Maye, not the other way around. So Marcus Maye's true feelings is that he wanted to get traded because he didn't want to play on a losing team if he doesn't have a long-term deal. If the Jets paid him, he'd be more than happy to come back and play. So keep that in mind. When Marcus Maye comes out there, and I'll read you the exact quote from what he said. He said, quote, let me pull it up here for you guys. Every time I'm in this building, I'm 100%. Every time I'm on the field, I'm 100%. I'm going to be with my guys no matter what. When you bring up the agent here, his agents, he basically said, well, I can't control what my agent says. I mean, come on. You can control what your agent says. Eric Burkhart is not tweeting about getting traded if you're not deep down saying that. Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. His agent Eric Burkhardt tweeted it'd be 3 to 4 week injury, and then May would be healthy by the trading deadline. So it's a complicated situation. I say all that to say I would trade May if the value's right. I think it's as simple as that because Marcus May, I don't think, who's about to turn 29, I don't think he's part of your long term future if you're the Jets. I really don't. And if he's not part of your long term future, then you got to think long and hard about moving him. He's 28 right now. He's turning 29 in March. He's been a good player. He's had issues with injuries. I'm not in such a rush to trade Marcus May, but at the same time, if you can get something for him, I'm all about it. Now, it's worth noting the Jets won their one game of the season so far without Marcus May against the Tennessee Titans, and the defense played really well in that game. Not saying that May isn't good, but I don't think he's a true difference maker. And him coming out and basically saying, well, he doesn't want to, he doesn't want to get traded now. To me, it's more so he doesn't want to create a headline, right? His agent created the headline with the tweets. And then obviously Marcus May gets this DUI arrest in the offseason. And the only reason why the Jets were notified about this from Marcus May is because it got reported to someone in the media. It got reported, I think it was Rich Cimini who broke the initial story. And then all of a sudden, once it was out there, then Marcus May told the Jets. So he was avoiding telling the Jets about any of this unless it became public knowledge, which it did. So there is obviously a lack of trust on both sides here. I just don't see the marriage working out long term. It does not seem like the Jets have any interest in paying Marcus May what he wants. So I think he's gone. Now, I wouldn't give him away. I think the more likely scenario here is that they could tag him and then trade him again in the offseason. I think that's more likely than, Marcus May necessarily getting dealt at the deadline because I just don't know truly what his value is. With that being said, what's your take on this? You could submit any comments or questions about Marcus May in the chat box, and we'll see what you guys are thinking. Frosty Taco writes in, I think he stays at this point because the team that trades for him will have to pay him, possibly lose him to a suspension for a few games. The reality is a team that's trading for him would be looking at him as, probably a rental. I don't know if the team that's acquiring Marcus May is then going to sign him long term. They'll probably let him hit free agency, and then they'll go out there and, let him walk depending on the team. Now, if he plays really well for that team, maybe they would bring him back. But you got to remember, this guy wants a multi-year deal, and he's going to be 29. He's an older player, despite the fact that he is obviously, he hasn't been in the NFL that long. He was drafted in 2017 in the second round, the round after Jamal Adams, which, by the way, you want to talk about incompetent football GMing? Mike McCagnon drafting 2 safeties with back-to-back picks. 2 non-premium positions are your first and second round picks. Now, in a vacuum, you could say, well, Adams is a really good player. We all know that. You could say May is a good player. We know that. You don't do that in the draft and back-to-back picks, but I don't need to go down that rabbit hole, Jet fans. We've suffered enough through the Izzik into the McCagnon era. Kevin Jackson writes in, finally, I catch you live. The likelihood of a trade seems very small unless Joe Douglas is willing to accept a 5th or less. The tag isn't a great situation, but maybe the only thing logically for the team. Yeah, look, the Jets have cap space, so the worst thing in the world would not be if May's on the tag again next year. He'd make a lot of money, so I know he wants a long-term deal, but, playing 2 straight years on the franchise tag is not the worst thing in the world. It means you're going to be paid the average of the top 5 players at your position for 2 consecutive years. I don't see that happening. I think the Jets would move on before. I think they'd try to trade him with the tag, and then if, they couldn't get anything, maybe they'd pull the tag. We've seen that before with guys in the NFL. If the team can't get to anything, they'll just remove the tag and they'll move on. I wouldn't do that because you want to get something for him. But looking ahead, I just don't see the scenario where Marcus May is on this team long term. So I would trade him, but I'm not giving him away. I think it sends the wrong message if you're just giving him away. Arthur writes in, Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we let May walk and he signs with another team next year, the Jets will likely get a 3rd round compensatory, right? So why trade him for anything less than a 3? So Arthur, specifically speaking, I'm not quite sure where the compensatory pick would fall. It seems like a possibility that it could be a 3rd round pick or a 4th round pick. I'd have to look into that to what specifically the requirements would be or the threshold of performance would be for Marcus May to warrant that type of compensatory pick. The reason why you would trade him is because you could use the pick right away in 2022. The compensatory pick you would not be able to get till 2023. So if you're able to get a 3rd for, let's say, Marcus May right now, you trade him because then you could use that pick right away. And if your goal is to try and be a playoff team in 2022, with Zach Wilson taking the next step in year 2, Salah in year 2, better players around Zach in year 2, 4 picks in the top 7 picks in the top 4 rounds of the draft. You see what I'm saying? You'd want to use that pick right away. So because that player could help you right away. So that's why. But I agree. They'd get something. I don't know how high the compensatory pick would be at this point. Let's see. What do we got here? Second Wave writes in. I think the DUI had a role to play. I probably heard he would be traded to the Lions. LOL. The DUI thing, I think, is why Marcus Maye came out there yesterday and didn't want to make a story. So by saying, oh, no, I want to be here. I don't want to get traded. My agent doesn't speak for me. I can't control what he tweets. Like, that's just a bunch of nonsense. The agent works for you. The agent is expressing your thoughts. Eric Burkhart is not going out there and tweeting out, oh, my client's going to be ready to go by the trade deadline, unless that's what they're thinking. They want Marcus Maye to get traded. Maye I can't blame Maye either, by the way. Like, Marcus May's only been on bad football teams since he's been with the Jets. So I don't blame him for wanting to go to a contending team if he's not going to be signed here long term. I don't blame him from that sense. I think it's weak that he didn't tell the Jets that he got a DUI. I think it's weak that his agent's tweeting that. I think there's a different way to handle it, but it is what it is. Marcus Maye is a good player. He's not a great player. He's not a true difference maker. I would trade him, but I'm not giving him away. I think that's what it comes down to. Franz writes in, you're not getting a third for him? No way. I agree. I'm using the third as an example. I think the Jets are looking at a 5th-round pick for Marcus Maye. You might be saying, no way. I think Jet fans, we sometimes tend to overrate our own players, and you got to understand the contract situation, and you got to understand, the fact that Maye's not signed long term. So I don't think you're getting much more for Marcus Maye than like a 5th, maybe a 4th. I could be wrong. In fact, I hope I'm wrong. If the Jets could turn Marcus Maye into a 3rd-round pick, I would drive him to the airport myself. And that's not to knock Maye. It's just the reality of the situation. He's a good player, not a great player. I think the Jets got to be smart about how they handle the situation. Now, with that being said, you look at where the Jets are at right now, and the other possible moves they can make at the trade deadline, it doesn't include just Marcus Maye. The Jets could also, let's say, trade Jamison Crowder. A team could need a slot receiver, right? I think New Orleans could make some sense for Jamison Crowder. They could use another weapon. So if you trade Crowder, you thus open up a spot right away for Elijah Moore to be the primary slot guy, which is where he dominated at Ole Miss. You could do that. Now, I'm not saying you trade Jamison Crowder, but Crowder would have some value. He's a really productive player, and it's not like the Jets can't replace him. Plus, Crowder, I don't think, is on the team in 2022. He's an aging player, and he's a free agent. So, the Jets redid his deal and brought him back. I don't know if they're going to deal him, but that, to me, is an option. I think you could see Tevin Coleman potentially getting dealt. I think you could see Keelan Cole potentially getting dealt. These guys are on 1-year deals. They're veterans. You're not going to get much, but I could see them possibly moving those players. I don't think the Jets are going to be in fire sale mode. This is not like last year or the year before when you're out of it, Gase is your head coach and you have no future. I don't see the fire sale coming. These are just names I look at and say, keep in mind, there could be, some movement there from some of those players I just mentioned. People have brought up Denzel Mims getting traded. I don't see that happening. Teams have continued to call the Jets about Denzel Mims, and the Jets have, to this point, basically hung up the phone. They're not trying to move him. But I'll tell you what, if you're not going to move Denzel Mims, and I don't think the Jets are going to trade him, you know what would be really nice? Playing Denzel Mims, allowing him to go out there and grow with Zach Wilson. I'd rather lose games with Mims playing than lose games with Keelan Cole playing. I'd rather lose games with Elijah Moore getting the bulk of the targets in the slot than Jamison Crowder, who's not necessarily going to be on the team in 2022. So the Jets have to realize that as much as this year is about developing Zach Wilson, it's also about developing some of your other young players that could be part of this team going forward. So those guys need to get some opportunities here. And I hope post-bye week, as Robert Saleh has said all week that they will, I hope he's true to his word on that. Actions speak louder than words, specifically Elijah Moore. Saleh said his breakout game's coming. Mike LaFleur watching his press conference yesterday, he echoed something similar. I think we need to see, the Jets be creative how they get the ball to some of their better players. I had Leger Douzable on the channel yesterday, and please watch that interview with Leger. If you didn't see it yet, we talked a lot about Elijah Moore and Denzel Mims. He's a huge Denzel Mims believer because of the 4-3 speed, the size, the ability that he can help this team in the red zone. The Jets need to get the ball moving here. They need to come out, start fast, as we all know in these games. And, I think getting the ball to some of those players would be a huge help for this team. There's certainly no doubt about that. So if you missed it, check out the interview with Leger Douzable, covers the Jets, obviously, for SNY, does their pre and post. And he obviously played for the Jets for 3 seasons with Rex Ryan and then 1 year of Todd Bowles in 2015. What do we got here? Hefe writes in, if his agent works for him, then nobody can be mad when his agent works in the best interest, whether or not that goes along with the team's best interest or not. Not saying he's right, just saying though. Well, Hefe, the thing is, there's a professional way to handle business, right? Having your agent tweet out right after you're injured, but don't worry, my guy will be available by the trade deadline. Like, that's just creating an unnecessary distraction for the Jets. It's creating unnecessary controversy that the media then has to cover and that fans then have to react to. Like, his agent can come out and say behind the scenes that his client wants to be traded. You don't need to really do it on Twitter. That tweet was basically doing it on Twitter, especially when you knew this whole time that your client was arrested for a DUI in the offseason and just did not tell the Jets. The only reason why Marcus Maye called a meeting with Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh was because it became public knowledge. Someone tipped him off to it, and Rich Cimini reported that Marcus Maye was arrested for DUI in the offseason. So both sides have been, not looking great throughout all this, but I'll take the Jets stance on it because I don't think you should overpay for a safety. He's going to be 29 years old. I've talked about this. I like Marcus Maye. I don't think it makes sense to invest, a lot of cap space potentially in a guy that I don't know is a true difference maker. Hader Ali writes in, what up, Jake? If we could get a 4th rounder, it'd be great, but Joe Douglas has done magic before. How about a tight end? Think our starting tight end is going on the IR. You very rarely will see like impactful player-to-player trades, so I don't think that's going to be how the Jets handle the Maye situation. I do think we can't rule out what Joe Douglas has done in trades. Did anyone think he'd be able to get a 4th-round pick for Chris Herndon, who finally had his first catch last week? I mean, the one thing you could say about Joe Douglas, we could get on some of the free agent signings. We could get on, obviously, he let Robbie Anderson walk. We could criticize him for some of the draft picks, but I think overall, you see the visions in place, right? I think overall, he's hit on some picks, and a lot of it's going to depend on Zach Wilson, but, AVT looks good. I think Elijah Moore is going to be good. I think, obviously, Bryce Hall looks good. Like, there's been some wins for Douglas. There's obviously been some losses for Douglas, like any GM. But I think one thing we could say for sure is that his biggest strength since he's been the Jets GM, and mind you, he's only been the Jets general manager since June of 2019 because of the whole McCagnon-Gase debacle. This guy has done outstanding with trades. He really has. Getting 2 1s for Adams, I mean, it speaks for itself. It's one of the best trades in the history of the NFL. That is not hyperbole. The fact that they're not paying Adams $17.5 million, the fact that Seattle might be picking in the top 15 now, I mean, it's unbelievable how that trade's going to work out. Sam Darnold, getting a 2nd and a 4th for him. Have you seen how Sam Darnold has played now the last 3 weeks? The Panthers were 3-0, and then Christian McCaffrey got hurt. How's that working out? They can't win without him because Sam Darnold can't check it down to him 1,000 times per game. So you look at the trades that have been made. Leonard Williams, even getting the picks they did for him was a great trade at the time. Like, I could keep going. Herndon getting a 4th for him. Like, trades have been Joe Douglas' strength. He's not going to get ripped off here. So if they don't trade Maye, that would tell me that teams weren't really offering anything because I think the Jets would move him, but you got to move him for the for the right price. If not, you're not going to give him away when you can franchise him again and then maybe trade him to a team in the offseason that thinks they might be a safety away from their defense taking the next step. Franz writes in, Maye is very overrated by most Jet fans. He misses a ton of tackles and has 6 picks in 61 games. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's a great player. I think the reality is the Jets have been so bad that because Marcus Maye has made some couple plays, maybe we have overrated him a tad. But I think, look, if you're the New York Jets and you could get anything that's a top 4-round pick for Marcus Maye, I think you do it. Ralph writes in, there's no reason for LaFleur to not use Mims and Moore against the Patriots. None. I agree. And it seems like they are going to use both, especially Moore. If you watched anything from the press conferences this week between either Robert Saleh or yesterday with Mike LaFleur, it seems like we're going to see the Elijah Moore breakout game. Now, I've talked about this from week 1 on. Hey, Moore could have a big game. Moore could have a big game. They got to go to him more, though. They targeted him twice in the London game against the Falcons. It's not good enough. I need to see more Elijah Moore. How about put him in the slot early in these games and have Zach Wilson get him the ball early just to get him going and to get Zach Wilson going? They got to start off quick. They got to go out there and move the chains, get a first down. Leger Duzable talked about this yesterday. You can't go up tempo. You can't do all these things that the Jets are going to try and do unless you get that first down. So the Jets not going 3 and out might be one of the biggest keys of the game. Not going 3 and out on the opening drive. Against the Falcons, they went 3 and out on both of the 2 drives that they had early in the game. And Atlanta scored on both of them, and you put yourself in a hole. That can't happen. The Jets cannot go 3 and out on their opening drive against the Patriots. They have to move the chains, have to flip field position, have to find a way to start out quicker. I mean, that's going to be the biggest key in my mind for how the Jets could stay competitive and perhaps have a chance of winning this game on Sunday. Great comment here from Adam. I need more cowbell, more, and Mims. Yes, more cowbell, more, and Mims. I like it. I think we clearly need to see those guys get more involved in this offense. There's only so many different ways we could talk about it here on this show and other shows at the end of the day. All right, with that being said, what else we got here? Nick writes in, I don't understand why Joe Douglas hasn't signed or traded for a guard yet. Van Roten is going to get Wilson killed. Unfortunately, it's because those guards that you're talking about, they don't exist. I don't think there's that many guys that are going to be true difference makers, and that's why the Jets are just sticking with what they have. They hope that continuity will help Van Roten maybe play a little better. I just think the reality is the fact of the matter is this: the Jets are going to use the draft or potentially free agency, but I think more likely the draft to draft more offensive linemen. I think the Jets could upgrade at center in the draft, and I think they could upgrade at guard in the draft. You got 2 first-round picks. You got 2 second-round picks. You obviously have, I'll say the stat again because it's huge for as far as the Jets' future here. You have 7 picks in the first 4 rounds. I think offensive line is going to be huge. Pass protection is going to be huge. You know, they've gone Becton and AVT in back-to-back years. The Jets in their franchise history have never drafted offensive linemen in the first round 3 straight years. I'd be all for them doing it this year. I think it sends the right message to this fan base and obviously sends the right message to Zach Wilson that we believe in you and we're going to give you protection for you to fully maximize your potential. Will the Jets be buyers potentially at the trade deadline if we win the next 2 games instead of sellers? I don't see the scenario where the Jets could be true buyers. Now, if someone falls into their lap, I think they'd be open to it, but I don't know if you're getting that tight end that the Jet fan desperately covets. And obviously, we just spent some time talking about the guard market. I've heard nothing. I've seen no evidence that there's going to be something out there that's going to be available for the Jets. So I would remain pretty hesitant as far as the Jets going out there and actually being buyers. I think they're more likely to stand pat. And they knew coming in, this was a rebuild year. They knew coming in, they were the youngest team in the NFL. They're going to let these guys play, let these guys develop. I'd be shocked if the Jets are going to be, buyers at the trade deadline. What do we got here? The elephant in the room. Wilson needs to hit the gimmies. Yeah, look, hopefully during the bye week, Wilson had this reset. I know he was working with his quarterback coach, John Beck, who played in the NFL and was obviously his guy, leading up to the draft that he trained with. I would hope that Wilson, the bye week for him comes at the right time, clears his head, and goes out there and is way more comfortable, in the, quote, second half of this Jets season. I know it's not technically the second half because the Jets bye week fell, obviously in week 6. But I'd like to see the Jets come out now for the remainder of the stretch, and I think we're going to see some real improvement from Zach. Hitting the gimmies is obviously the number one thing. I know every Jet fan loves to blame Mike LaFleur for the offense starting slow, and I'm not saying he's blameless. I've been critical of his play calling at times as well, but I think we got to be fair and put some of it on the quarterback, who's a rookie who's made some rookie mistakes. He was a rookie and is still developing. We've seen the greatness from Zach. That, you can't erase the throws he made in that Tennessee game. You saw why the Jets love him and took him second overall. You saw why the Jets are going to be patient with Zach Wilson because they know he's got, great player potential in him. We've seen it. We've seen it at times in games, even where the Jets haven't won. But he's got to hit those easy throws, and that's going to come hopefully with experience. And I think eventually, as Robert Saleh talked about, it's just going to click at some point, and hopefully it clicks on Sunday against the Patriots. Wilson's had 2 weeks to prepare for this opponent. He obviously has seen this opponent once already. Now, we know New England's going to give the Jets an entirely different look than what happened what happened in week 2. Leger Douzable was talking about this yesterday in the show. Whatever Belichick did in week 2, you're not going to see very many similarities in this game on Sunday. He'll switch it up, but you hope the Jets are prepared. So we'll see how this team comes out and plays. But I'll make a prediction right here, Jeff fans. I think you guys will like this. I don't think Zach Wilson's going to throw 4 interceptions in this game. Call me a hot takesman, but I don't think Zach Wilson will have 4 interceptions in this game on Sunday. I don't think 3 of them will come in the first half either. So that will be improvement from the last time we saw the Jets take on the Patriots here. I'd like to see the Jets offense get going early, and I'd like to see this team go out there and obviously execute offensively on first and second down. Don't put Zach Wilson in third and long. Move the chains. Let's get that running game going. The reality is as well, the Jets in that game against the Patriots in week 2, they actually played really well at every position besides quarterback. Like, go back to that game. What did the Jets do well? They protected Zach Wilson. They ran the ball well. Defensively, they forced some key stops, but they lost by, I think the final score was like 25-6 that game. Why? Well, the quarterback turned the ball over 4 times. It's just not going to work. So, if they could duplicate that performance minus Wilson having, a Sam Darnold seeing ghost-like performance against New England, then the Jets could be in this game on Sunday. Plus, I think what helps the Jets is the Patriots have played down to their level of competition so far this season. They nearly lost to the Texans. They lost to the Saints. They lost to the Dolphins in week 1. They play up to their competition, nearly beat Brady and the Bucs. That was their Super Bowl, though, for how much that game meant. And they obviously took the Cowboys to overtime last week. It came within a 4th and 4 stop of winning that game if Dak didn't hit Wilson to keep that drive going at the end there. So I think this game is winnable for the Jets. Are they going to win? I can't sit here and pick them until I see it, right? I'm just not going to do it. I think they can win this game. This is not, same old Pats with Tom Brady. This is a Patriots team that's 2-4, and they're 0-4 at home this year. Can we really see them going 0-5? I mean, look, I didn't really see them going 0-4 at home, if you asked me that going into the year. So I think this game is more winnable than maybe a lot of people on the outside look at it. They still got a rookie quarterback themselves. They got to force Mac Jones into some mistakes. Maybe Mac Jones can have a game where he's seeing ghosts. Wouldn't it be nice if a Jets defense did that? Hater writes in, it would be great to see Davis, Mims, and Elijah on the field together. I agree. You need Corey Davis to be involved in this team. But if the Patriots are going to double him and take him out because they know Zach Wilson likes to throw to Corey Davis, then guess what? Throw to Mims. Throw to Elijah Moore. Throw to the open guy. Throw to your check down. Leger talked about this yesterday, and I see Cyber wrote in about Michael Carter. I think Michael Carter and Ty Johnson are really, really important if the Jets win this game. If the Jets win this game, I think one of the key things we're going to be talking about is the fact that those guys stepped up and had big games, not just as runners, but as receivers. You saw the Cowboys really attack the Pats in the seams. You saw the running backs for the Cowboys, Zeke and Tony Pollard, had big games last week. You're going to need Michael Carter and Ty Johnson to make some plays. Zach's going to have to be willing to take the couple-yard check down that's in front of him. He didn't do that in week 2. He obviously tried to force things, and it led to the 4 interceptions. He's got to do that in this game and put that performance behind him. I think he will, and I think Michael Carter's a name to watch here as a guy, that could go out there and, can make some plays for this team in this game on Sunday. Hefe writes in, I want good old-fashioned ground and pound with top defense instead of Zach dropping back a million times every game. The issue, Hefe, is Zach's had to throw a lot more than the Jets wanted to because they've started so slow on offense. They're trailing in these games. I mean, you're down 20-3 to the Atlanta Falcons, who aren't a very good team. So Zach Wilson's obviously got to throw to make up for that. So what I would like to see is the Jets are in a game. They score first. Maybe they dictate the scoreboard early on for once. And then I think we could really see the full complement of what this offense can be. I think, in theory, it's great. I'll ground and pound, play great D. But you can only do that if you're picking up first downs early in these games. The Jets have gone 3 and out how many times at the beginning of these games? Specifically, their offense in the first quarter, it's hard to believe how bad it is. Not saying the second quarter is that much better, but it's a little better. They've actually scored in the second quarter of some of these games. So you got to keep that in mind as well. These are things to consider here when you talk about the Jets. Zach's first zero interception game. I think that'd be a great step in the right direction if Zach Wilson can go out there and have a zero interception game. I think that'd be a step in the right direction. There's no doubt. Taking care of the ball would be huge, especially doing it against this team after he had the game that he had in week 2. If Zach could take care of the ball, I think that'd be great. NY Jets Florida writes in, we had 150 rushing yards in the first game. How about bootlegs, rollouts, and no huddle? I've talked a lot about this week. I think those are all keys to getting this offense rolling. The Jets have said that they have a plan in place to start out faster. Robert Saleh said they're tweaking the practice schedule. Leger Duzable pointed out that could just mean more team periods early in practice, get the blood flowing, get the juices rolling here. I'm all for it. Whatever it takes, if it's moving LaFleur up to the coach's box to call plays, if it's taking a couple deep chances downfield to kind of get everyone, amped up, going no huddle. Like the Jets, you could take a chance downfield and draw a passing interference penalty. Like that's allowed. You don't always need a completion. You also got to run the ball effectively. They did that in the first game, and then Zach would turn the ball over. So there's a bunch of different ways to get this offense going. But the bottom line is it's going to be on Zach Wilson to, as one of our commenters mentioned, he's got to execute on the gimmies. Go back and watch the Falcons game. There were plays there that the Jets made, had open guys, but Zach missed a guy, and that's okay. He's a rookie. He's going to make mistakes. Let's see how he performs here post-bye week, having 2 weeks to prepare for an opponent that he's already seen once. I think that's a key thing to remember here when we talk about Jets-Patriots on Sunday. With that being said, we've gone for over 31 minutes. I want to thank all of you who took time to watch this video. Do me a favor, like this video down below. Click that thumbs up icon. It helps this channel continue to grow. Consider that a form of payment. Subscribe to this channel. Click the subscribe button on the right-hand side of your screen. Like this video. It's all free. It helps this channel continue to grow. Thanks to everyone who took time to watch. I'm on the radio hosting my national show on Sports Map Radio tomorrow from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern. I will have a couple of Jets-related segments and or guests that you will see on the YouTube channel tomorrow afternoon. Thanks to everyone who took time to watch. Once again, my name is Jake Asman. Comment your thoughts in the video if you're watching it after the fact. What do you want to see from Zach Wilson in company in this game on Sunday? And, of course, the lead topic, do you think Marcus Maye gets traded by the deadline? Back with more videos tomorrow. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good Friday, and I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.